300 hours, underwater approaches to Kaohsiung Port. The ocean is pitch black, a void of crushing pressure and absolute cold. 12 meters beneath the surface, faint bioluminescence glimmers against the face masks of the dive team. They move like phantoms, propelled by silent electric scooters through the murky suspension of silt and debris. Above them, the heavy steel hulls of enemy patrol boats slice through the water, their engines churning a rhythmic thrum that vibrates against the divers' chests. The water tastes of diesel and salt, forcing its way through the regulators. The team leader signals with a green chem light. A massive, jagged shape looms out of the darkness ahead. It is a dense network of steel hedgehogs and tethered naval mines, designed to rip the bellies out of amphibious landing craft. The barricade stretches across the harbor mouth like a skeletal rib cage. The divers fan out. They detach plastic explosive packs from their harnesses. Hands move with practiced precision in the gloom. Magnets clamp onto the rusted steel beams with dull thuds. The team leader checks his wrist console. He secures the detonator cord to the main structural support of the anti-ship net. Movement flashes in the periphery. 3 shapes detach from the shadows of the harbor wall. Enemy frogmen. They kick hard, closing the distance instantly. A harpoon streaks through the water, leaving a trail of bubbles. It pierces the shoulder of the American flanker. Blood puffs out like black smoke in the low light. The wounded diver spins, drawing his combat knife. The enemy surges forward. The silence of the deep is shattered by the violence of the collision. Bodies crash together in slow-motion fury. The American diver drives his blade into the enemy's rebreather loop. Bubbles explode violently, blinding the combatants. The enemy diver thrashes, clawing at his throat as water floods his lungs. The team leader abandons the explosive setup and kicks toward the melee. He fires his underwater pistol. The supercavitating rounds tear through the water, leaving vapor trails. One round strikes an enemy diver in the face mask. The glass shatters. The body goes limp, drifting downward into the abyss. Above, the surface erupts. The patrol boat crew spots the turbulence. A heavy splash hits the water. A concussion grenade sinks rapidly toward the fight. The team leader grabs the wounded diver by the harness. He slams the arm button on the main demolition charge. The timer glows red, 10 seconds. He signals the retreat. The team engages their thrusters, shooting backward away from the steel barricade. The grenade detonates. A shockwave hammers them, compressing their wetsuits against their skin and rattling their teeth. They spin in the turbulence, fighting to stabilize. The timer hits 0. A massive sphere of expanding gas rips the harbor mouth apart. The explosion vaporizes the water, creating a vacuum that sucks the steel hedgehogs inward before blasting them outward in twisted shrapnel. The shockwave hits the hull of the enemy patrol boat above. The vessel lifts out of the water, its keel snapping under the force. Fire and steam erupt from the surface, illuminating the night sky with a blinding orange flash. The team leader checks his team. They are battered, but the blockade is gone. The path for the invasion force is open. 500 hours, Destroyer Squadron 1, 10 miles off the coast. The gray dawn struggles to break through heavy overcast clouds. Rain lashes the steel decks of the lead destroyer, mixing with the salt spray from the chopping waves. The massive 5-inch deck guns rotate in unison, their servos whining against the wind. On the bridge, officers stand rigid, illuminated by the green glow of radar scopes. The ship pitches rhythmically in the swell. The air is cold and smells of impending violence. The tactical action officer grips the handset. "Batteries released!" he barks. The order cuts through the static. The ship shudders violently. The main gun fires. A massive tongue of orange flame erupts from the barrel, momentarily blinding the bridge crew. The concussion slams against the reinforced glass windows. A split second later, the second destroyer in the line fires, then the third. The horizon flashes stroboscopically as the squadron unloads its payload. Spent shell casings the size of fire hydrants clang onto the steel deck, rolling in the wash of the rain. Miles away, the Kaohsiung coastline disintegrates. The high explosive shells scream out of the sky. They slam into the reinforced concrete bunkers overlooking the harbor. The earth heaves, concrete pilings shatter into dust. A hardened machine gun nest takes a direct hit. The structure vanishes in a cloud of black smoke and pulverized rock. Enemy soldiers running along the trench lines are thrown like ragdolls by the overpressure. Sandbags rip open, spilling dirt and blood into the craters. The bombardment intensifies. The destroyers switch to rapid fire. The coastline becomes a wall of fire and debris. A fuel storage tank near the docks catches a stray fragment. It detonates. A massive fireball rolls upward, turning the gray morning into a hellish red. Secondary explosions ripple through the ammunition depots, sending tracers spinning wildly into the sky. The sound of the impacts rolls over the water like thunder, a constant crushing roar. Shift fire, the captain yells over the din. Target grid Delta 9. Suppress the anti-air batteries. The turrets traverse 5 degrees right. The guns roar again. On the shore, a battery of enemy surface-to-air missile launchers attempts to deploy. The barrage catches them in the open. Shrapnel shreds the radar dishes. A launcher vehicle erupts, its missiles cooking off and spiraling into the ground. The defensive line is broken. The beach is a smoking ruin of cratered mud and twisted metal. 600 hours, surf zone Kaohsiung beachhead. The sun burns a pale hole through the black smoke of the bombardment. The roar is absolute. It vibrates in the teeth and bones of every soldier. Dozens of amphibious assault vehicles cut white wakes through the gray water, their engines screaming as they surge toward the sand. Overhead, flights of transport helicopters fly low, their rotors whipping the smoke into violent spirals. The beach is a moonscape of craters and burning debris. The first wave hits the shallows. Tracks grind against the coral reef. The vehicles lurch forward, climbing the wet sand. Heavy machine guns mounted on their turrets sweep the ruined seawall, spitting brass casings onto the deck. Suddenly, the beach erupts. Enemy mortars drop a curtain of fire along the waterline. An amphibious vehicle takes a direct hit on its top hatch. The explosion rips the armor plating open like a tin can. Flames engulf the chassis. Soldiers spill out of the rear ramp, coughing and stumbling into the surf. Water turns red. A transport helicopter flares to land near the dunes. A rocket-propelled grenade streaks from a spider hole. It shears the tail rotor off. The helicopter spins wildly, its main blades smashing into the ground. Metal shrapnel sprays across the landing zone, cutting down infantrymen as they sprint for cover. "Suppression fire, west flank!" a sergeant screams over the noise. A squad of Marines drops prone behind a crater rim. They mount light machine guns. They pour fire into the smoking rubble of the seawall. Concrete chips and dust fly as the rounds hammer the enemy positions. A second wave of heavy hovercrafts slides onto the beach, kicking up massive clouds of spray. The ramps drop with a metallic crash. Hundreds of infantrymen charge into the chaos, boots pounding the wet sand. They dive into shell holes, returning fire. The air fills with the snap of supersonic rounds and the crump of grenades. The invasion has begun. 6:30 hours, the seawall northern sector. The concrete barrier looms 3 meters high, scarred by shell fragments. Thick gray smoke drifts along the ground, stinging the eyes. A platoon of infantrymen presses their bodies flat against the rough surface. Above them, enemy voices shout commands in a harsh cadence. Dust falls from the wall's edge as boots stomp on the walkway overhead. The air smells of pulverized stone and burnt gunpowder. A heavy machine gun hammers the ground just inches from the platoon leader's boot. "Breach it!" the lieutenant screams. 2 combat engineers sprint forward. They slam a linear charge against the concrete face. They prime the detonator and dive into a shell crater. "Fire in the hole!" The explosion punches the air out of the soldier's lungs. A 10-meter section of the seawall disintegrates. Concrete blocks the size of cars tumble forward in a cloud of choking dust. Before the debris settles, the platoon surges. They scramble over the broken rebar and shattered masonry, weapons raised. The other side is a slaughterhouse. Enemy soldiers in the trench line recover from the shock. They raise their rifles. The 2 forces collide at point-blank range. An American soldier fires his shotgun. The round catches an enemy defender in the chest, lifting him off his feet and slamming him into the mud. Another enemy lunges with a bayonet. The blade scrapes against a ceramic plate carrier. The American smashes his rifle butt into the attacker's jaw. Bone cracks. The enemy falls. A hidden bunker at the end of the trench opens fire. Tracers zip through the smoke at waist height. 2 Marines drop, their legs shredded. The squad leader pulls a fragmentation grenade. He pulls the pin and hurls it over the sandbags. It lands with a heavy thud inside the bunker. A muffled boom shakes the ground. Smoke pours from the firing slit. The machine gun goes silent. The platoon fans out, clearing the remaining spider holes with short, controlled bursts. The seawall is theirs. Ahead, the massive cranes of the port wait like steel giants. 800 hours, Logistics Gate 4, outer perimeter. The massive reinforced concrete wall blocks the horizon, scarred but standing. It separates the beachhead from the main cargo terminal. Combat engineers work frantically at the base of the gate. They tape brick after brick of plastic explosives to the steel hinges and concrete pillars. Behind them, the low rumble of idling battle tanks vibrates the ground. The air is thick with dust and the sharp tang of ozone. The engineers' hands are steady, but their movements are jerky and fast. A crack echoes from the warehouse roof inside the complex. A bullet sparks off the concrete inches from a sergeant's face. Concrete chips spray his visor. He flinches. "Sniper, high right!" he yells. The infantry support team behind the tanks opens up. Thousands of rounds from assault rifles and squad automatic weapons hammer the warehouse roof. Tiles shatter. The enemy sniper position disappears in a cloud of brick dust. The fire superiority is deafening. The engineers finish the loop. They sprint back toward the armored cover, unreeling the firing wire. Fire in the hole! The sergeant squeezes the detonator. A flash of white light splits the gate. The sound arrives a fraction of a second later, a physical punch that rattles the teeth. The massive steel doors, weighing tons, are ripped from their hinges. They cartwheel through the air like cardboard, slamming into the pavement with a ground-shaking crash. The concrete archway crumbles, burying the entrance in rubble. Before the dust settles, the turbine engine of the lead battle tank screams. The 60-ton monster surges forward. Its tracks crush the fallen concrete, grinding rebar into the dirt. The barrel swings left, hunting for targets. It bursts through the smoke screen, entering the port facility. An enemy armored vehicle waits on the other side. The battle tank fires on the move. The sabot round punches through the enemy armor, exiting the rear in a spray of molten metal. The enemy vehicle explodes, its turret spinning into the air. The breach is secure. So 915 hours. Container Terminal B. The sun climbs higher, casting long, sharp shadows through the canyons of stacked shipping containers. The air is stiflingly hot, trapping the heavy exhaust fumes of the armored column. The lead U.S. battle tank creeps forward, its tracks squealing against the asphalt. The massive turret pans left, then right, scanning the colorful walls of steel. Infantry walk close to the hull, weapons raised, eyes scanning the rooftops. The ground vibrates with the low, predatory idle of the turbine engine. A metallic clang echoes from a side alley. The tank commander freezes. A camouflaged barrel protrudes from behind a blue container stack. An enemy shell slams into the U.S. tank's front glacis. The reactive armor tiles detonate instantly. The explosion deflects the penetrator rod, sending it spinning upward into a nearby crane leg. Sparks shower the infantry like fireworks. The U.S. tank rocks violently back on its suspension. The gunner screams a target lock. The main gun fires. The round punches through two empty shipping containers before striking the enemy tank hiding behind them. The impact shears the enemy turret clean off. It cartwheels through the air, crashing down on a parked truck. The enemy tank's hull erupts in a column of fire. But the ambush is not over. Enemy soldiers with rocket launchers pop up from the tops of the container stacks. A rocket streaks down. It hits the track of the second U.S. tank in the column. The tread snaps with a loud whip crack. The tank slews sideways, losing control. It slams into a stack of containers. The steel boxes buckle and topple over, crashing down like dominoes. Tons of twisted metal bury the street, cutting off the platoon. "Canister round, rooftops!" The platoon leader yells into the radio. The lead tank angles its main gun up. It fires a canister shell. The round detonates midair, turning into a giant shotgun blast. Thousands of tungsten balls shred the container tops. Metal rips open. The enemy rocket teams are misted, their equipment shattering under the hail of shrapnel. The ambush is broken, but the street is now a choke point of burning wreckage. 10:30 hours, the container maze, Sector 4. The sun beats down on the canyon of steel. Shipping containers stacked 4 high create a claustrophobic labyrinth of red, blue, and rusted orange walls. Heat waves ripple off the metal, distorting the air. The alleyways are narrow, barely wide enough for 2 men to walk abreast. Silence hangs heavy, broken only by the buzzing of flies and the distant, rhythmic thumping of artillery. Second squad moves in a tight stack formation, boots rolling silently on the baking asphalt. The point man freezes. He raises a fist. He points to a thin copper wire stretched across the path at ankle height, tied to a claymore mine taped to a crate. A dry crack echoes from the cranes above. The bullet tears through the point man's shoulder. Blood sprays against the blue steel of the container wall. He spins and collapses, screaming, "Sniper! High angle!" The squad dives into the narrow gaps between the heavy boxes. Bullets spark violently off the corrugated metal, whining as they ricochet down the alley. A machine gun opens up from a hidden nest atop a stack of containers 50 meters down. Heavy rounds chew up the asphalt, kicking up clouds of debris. The noise is amplified in the steel canyon, a deafening cacophony of metal impacts and shouting. The squad leader presses his face into the dirt. A round smashes the corner of the container inches above his head. Rust dust blinds him momentarily. He spots the muzzle flash, a dark gap between 2 green containers on the 3rd tier. "Grenadier, put a round in that gap, 11 o'clock!" The grenadier rolls onto his back, exposing himself to the kill zone for a split second. He aims his underbarrel launcher. Thump. The 40mm grenade arcs over the alley. It drops perfectly into the gap between the containers. Boom! The explosion blows the steel doors of the container outward. Smoke billows from the nest. A broken body is hurled over the edge, cartwheeling down 3 stories. It crashes onto the pavement with a wet, heavy thud. The enemy machine gun clatters down a second later, its barrel bent. "Suppressing fire, move up!" The squad surges forward. They step over the tripwire and drag the wounded point man into cover. The medic rips open a trauma packet, pressing gauze into the wound. The rest of the team scans the rooftops, barrels shaking with adrenaline. The path ahead is clear, but the maze continues. 1200 hours, Fuel Depot Sector, East Dock. The midday sun hammers down on the industrial wasteland. Massive white cylindrical storage tanks rise like fortress towers, casting almost no shadow in the vertical light. The air ripples with heat distortion and the overwhelming chemical stench of refined diesel. Alpha Company moves in a wedge formation along the service road, boots crunching on gravel. Beside them, thick steel pipelines run parallel to the ground, hissing faintly under internal pressure. The silence is heavy, punctuated only by the distant thud of the tank battle miles away. A heavy metallic bolt slams home in the darkness of a bunker ahead. "Contact front!" the point man screams. The ambush initiates instantly. 3 concealed heavy machine guns open fire simultaneously from the base of the fuel tanks. The crossfire is brutal and precise. The lead fire team is cut down before they can raise their rifles. Bodies are hurled backward onto the asphalt. The rest of the company dives behind the concrete pipeline supports. Bullets spark wildly off the steel pipes, whining like angry hornets. An enemy soldier fires a rocket launcher from a catwalk. The warhead streaks down and impacts a main transfer valve. Metal shears with a deafening screech. High-octane fuel sprays out under immense pressure, blasting across the road like a fire hose. The liquid soaks the pinned soldiers, stinging their eyes and skin. The smell is suffocating. "Don't shoot the pipes! Watch your fire!" the captain roars, wiping fuel from his goggles. The enemy has no such restraint. Tracers zip through the fuel mist. One spark will turn the entire sector into a blast furnace. The enemy infantry advances, using the suppression fire to close the distance. They throw grenades over the concrete berms. A grenade lands between 2 Marines. One kicks it away. It detonates in the open. The shockwave knocks the wind out of them, peppering their legs with shrapnel. They drag themselves deeper into cover, gasping for air. The captain grabs the radio handset. "Command, this is Alpha 6. We are fixed and taking heavy casualties. We are soaking in fuel. We need immediate air support or we burn. Over." Bullets chip away the concrete inches from his head. The enemy machine guns do not pause. The trap is tight and the fuse is lit. 1300 hours, low altitude approach, East Dock. The sky is a blinding white canvas above the industrial sprawl. Below, the fuel depot is a death trap of spraying diesel and desperate shouting. 2 attack helicopters bank hard around the smokestacks, their rotors cutting the humid air with a deep, rhythmic thwup thwup thwup. The pilots scan the sector through thermal monocles. The heat signatures of the enemy machine gunners glow white-hot against the cool concrete of the bunkers. On the ground, an enemy officer stands on a catwalk. He raises a flare gun. He aims at the fuel-soaked depression where Alpha Company huddles. He pulls the trigger. A red phosphorus flare arcs high, sputtering sparks. It begins to fall toward the pool of volatile liquid. "Gun run, hot, now!" The lead attack helicopter noses down instantly. The 30mm chain gun under its chin spins up. "Bird!" The sound rips the air apart like canvas tearing. A stream of high-explosive rounds slams into the catwalk. The enemy officer disintegrates in a pink mist. The metal grating shreds. The flare drops harmlessly onto dry concrete, rolling away from the fuel. The chain gun walks its fire across the enemy bunkers. Concrete explodes, sandbags vanish in clouds of dust. The heavy rounds punch through the reinforced walls like paper. Inside, the enemy machine gun crews are thrown against the back walls, shredded by the impacts. The wingman peels off to the left. He fires a pod of unguided rockets. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh! The rockets slam into the enemy reinforcements moving in the open behind the tanks. The earth lifts in a series of violent concussions. Shrapnel scythes through the attackers at knee height. Bodies tumble into the dirt. The shockwave knocks the breath out of the US soldiers, but the fuel does not ignite. "Move! Now, while their heads down!" the captain screams. He hauls a wounded private to his feet. The Marines sprint across the open road, boots splashing through the slick diesel puddles. They slide and stumble, lungs burning. Above them, the helicopters bank around for a second pass, their shadows sweeping over the battlefield. The chain guns roar again, suppressing the remaining spider holes. Alpha Company dives into the safety of a drainage ditch on the far side of the road. They gasp for air, wiping oil from their eyes. Behind them, the enemy position is a smoking ruin. 1500 hours, Port Authority Control Tower, 20th floor. The glass monolith rises above the smoke of the harbor, untouched by the artillery below. Inside the air-conditioned command deck, enemy officers crowd around digital map tables. Red icons blink rapidly, signaling collapsed defensive lines. The room smells of stale coffee and fear sweat. Outside, the sky is empty, save for the drifting columns of black smoke from the fuel depot. A shadow flickers across the main viewing window. A low hum vibrates the glass. It grows instantly to a roar. 2 light attack helicopters pop up vertically from below the roofline. They hover meters from the glass, skids level with the floor. Operators on the external benches raise their weapons. "Breach! Breach!" The lead operator slaps a frame charge against the reinforced window. He pushes off. The charge detonates. The explosion shatters the entire south face of the control deck. Thousands of shards of safety glass spray into the room like diamond buckshot. The overpressure knocks the enemy officers flat. Papers and maps swirl in a violent vortex. Before the dust settles, a canister bounces across the floor. Bang! A flashbang grenade detonates. A blinding white light sears the retinas of anyone facing the window. The sound is a physical hammer blow to the eardrums. The Special Forces team swings through the broken window frames on ropes. Boots crunch on the glass-covered floor. Their suppressed assault rifles cough rhythmically.
Drop the weapon now.
An enemy colonel stumbles up from behind a console drawing a pistol. 2 rounds strike his chest plate. The impact throws him back into a server rack. Sparks shower the room. Another officer lunges for a submachine gun on a desk. A laser dot sweeps across his visor. A single shot drops him. The team flows through the room like water. They check corners. They double-tap downed combatants. "Clear left! Clear right!" The team leader steps over a body. He reaches the main communications console. He smashes the radio handset with his rifle butt. He pulls a beacon from his vest and slams it onto the desk. A green light pulses. The enemy command network is severed. The room is silent, save for the wind howling through the shattered windows. 16:30 hours, Central Access Corridor main docks. The late afternoon sun bleeds through the heavy smoke, casting long, bruised shadows across the asphalt. US infantrymen kneel behind overturned Jersey barriers, restacking magazines. The fighting has lulled. The air is still, heavy with the metallic taste of adrenaline and ozone. A discarded water bottle rolls across the street in the wind. The ground begins to tremble. It is not a subtle vibration. It is a building earthquake that rattles the optics on the rifle rails. "Contact! Front! Massive armor column!" A sentry screams from a rooftop. The enemy launches their final gamble. Around the bend of the warehouse district, the enemy reserve force appears. It is a suicide charge. 6 battle tanks and a dozen armored vehicles roar down the straightaway at full speed. They do not maneuver. They do not seek cover. They charge in a phalanx of steel and exhaust. Their engines scream at the red line. "Fire at will! Stop them!" The lead U.S. battle tank, parked at the intersection, fires. The sabot round punches through the lead enemy tank. The turret pops off, spinning into the air. The hull bursts into flames, but the tank does not stop. Momentum carries the 60-ton burning wreck forward. It slams into the U.S. barricade, crushing a concrete planter and spraying burning fuel over the defenders. The enemy column surges through the fire. An enemy armored vehicle smashes into a parked U.S. supply truck. Metal screams against metal. The truck folds in half. The enemy vehicle climbs over the wreckage, its tracks grinding the debris into the pavement. The top hatch opens. An enemy gunner sprays the street with a heavy machine gun. A U.S. corporal stands up behind a wall. He shoulders a rocket launcher. The backblast clears the dust around him. The warhead shrieks across the gap. It strikes the enemy vehicle in the driver's viewport. The explosion guts the interior. The vehicle slews sideways, flipping onto its roof with a ground-shaking crash. The range is 0. It is a brawl of heavy iron. A U.S. tank reverses, its machine guns sweeping the enemy infantry riding on the hulls of the attackers. Bodies tumble onto the asphalt, rolling under the grinding tracks. An enemy tank rams the U.S. tank broadside. The collision rings like a giant bell. The U.S. tank shudders but holds. Its turret traverses point blank. The muzzle is feet away from the enemy hull. Boom! The shot cores the enemy tank. The ammunition inside cooks off instantly. A pillar of fire erupts from the hatches, torching the paint on the U.S. tank's side. The shockwave shatters windows for 3 blocks. The enemy momentum breaks against the wall of steel and firepower. The burning wrecks pile up, blocking the road, turning the corridor into a graveyard of twisted armor. 1800 hours, main docking apron. The sun dips below the horizon, painting the sky in bruises of purple and charcoal. The roar of combat has faded to sporadic distant pops. Black smoke pillars still rise from the burning tank carcasses in the access corridor, but the fires are contained. The air cools rapidly, bringing the heavy metallic smell of wet ash and copper blood. US soldiers sit on ammo crates and concrete barriers, helmets off. Their faces are caked in grime and grease. A lone enemy survivor stumbles out from behind a crushed shipping container. He raises a pistol, his hand shaking violently. 3 Marines spin around. They do not shout. They do not hesitate. They raise their rifles in unison. 3 shots crack through the twilight. The enemy soldier drops, his weapon skittering across the pavement. Silence returns. It is heavier now. Check the perimeter. Intervals! A sergeant barks, his voice hoarse. The soldiers struggle to their feet. They move with the stiff, jerky motions of exhaustion. Armored recovery vehicles rumble into the sector, their winches whining. Heavy steel cables snap onto the burning wrecks, blocking the road. The engines roar, dragging the twisted metal aside to clear supply lanes. Sparks shower the asphalt as steel scrapes against stone. Medics move between the wounded, tagging them with color-coded cards. A corpsman kneels beside a wounded machine gunner. He tightens a tourniquet. The plastic windlass creaks. He wipes blood from his hands with a rag and signals for a litter team. They lift the wounded man, his boots dragging slightly on the ground. The company commander climbs onto the hull of the lead battle tank. He looks out over the harbor. The water is calm, reflecting the fires on the shore. He keys his radio handset. Command, this is Alpha 6. Objective secure. Defensive line established. Enemy resistance has ceased. We are green. The radio crackles. Copy Alpha 6. Relief column is inbound. Hold fast. On the horizon, the silhouette of a massive US amphibious transport dock appears against the dying light. It moves slowly toward the captured berths. A young private pulls a small, folded American flag from his webbing. He climbs the tank turret. He zip-ties the fabric to the whip antenna. The wind catches it. The flag snaps sharply in the sea breeze. Flying above the ruin and the smoke, the port belongs to them.